We all know taking our temperature is important for staying healthy. But can you take a city's temperature? How do you do it? And what do you do with the data once you have it? And can you change the temperature of a city if you have enough data or are able to apply it? Welcome to Impact with AI. I'm excited to dive into another conversation with an entrepreneur using artificial intelligence and machine learning technology to impact the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Today, I'm joined by Jay Sadiq, CEO of FortyGuard. I'll be talking to Jay about SDG 11, sustainable cities and communities. Jay, welcome to Impact with AI. Happy to have you join the conversation. How are you and FortyGuard making an impact?
Yeah, thank you for having us. I think the SDG that is most relevant to urban heat is SDG 11, like you mentioned, sustainable cities and communities. And it obviously the SDG itself focuses on making cities inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. The urban heat challenge is one of the biggest threats to this goal because we have a lot of rise on urban heat and a lot of temperatures they spike because of materiality selection in cities. When we build them, we have a lot of concrete, we have a lot of asphalt, we have a lot of industrial activities,
Mm-hmm.
and these together they create a lot of heat pockets. So with those heat pockets we become exposed to a lot of increased health risks.
Mm-hmm.
I personally suffered from urban heat growing up because it was really hot and I had asthma. So I spent almost half of my childhood in hospital, and I know
Oh,
what it
wow.
means when it comes to health risks. Some people,
Mm-hmm.
or for some others, it takes their lives, especially in vulnerable communities, the elderly people, the kids, and so on and
Yeah.
so forth. And obviously, with the increase of heat, and we've witnessed a lot of that before, there becomes a strain on energy grids. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes people or houses or operations or even companies run out of energy. And obviously, if you put all of that together with a lot of many other problems that we could spend all the time discussing, you
Mm-hmm.
reduce the overall livability in cities. Now,
Mm.
the problem is a lot of people are moving into cities, and
Yep.
we're continuing to build even more cities. So we can only account or calculate that cities are just going to continue to get more hot, and the
Mm-hmm.
problem is just getting bigger, right? So there has been a lot of progress in this space. There are a lot of cities that are taking policy interventions around urban cooling. There are a lot of cities that are considering for green infrastructure like tree planting, shaded
Mm-hmm.
bus stations, and different other things. There are cities who are implementing energy efficient urban planning, like Masdar City in Abu Dhabi, for instance, where I grew up. There are
Mm-hmm.
a lot of cities that are incentivizing the use of EVs and
Mm-hmm.
pedestrian first zones, like the Sustainability City in Dubai. All of those things are working. But what is missing, and I think that's the biggest gap in cities today, is the data, and
Uh-huh.
more specifically around high resolution temperature data. All
Mm-hmm.
the current systems that we have today are almost satellite data or weather stations. They
Mm-hmm.
use averages over a large zone. They ignore completely the hyper local heat variations at the neighborhood or even the street level. And
Oh.
obviously, when you use that data, you result in a miscalculated or misallocated resources, like
Mm-hmm.
plant trees just randomly,
Yeah.
thinking that this would cool it down, and making our cities obviously exposed to heat. So I think here the real problem, to answer your question, is um, climate data is outdated. It's not real time. And
Uh-huh.
cities are still using a very broad access to meteorological averages that cannot guide us to target actions. And
Mm-hmm.
we're getting a lot of inefficient, but also very reactive strategies. The
Mm-hmm.
opportunity with AI here becomes really massive because when you combine AI with temperature intelligence, you basically enter in a new era where temperature isn't just weather data. Now,
Mhm.
temperature intelligence can track heat in real time across the entire city. And
Mhm.
not only that, it can track it down to the 10-meter square granularity, almost 2 meters above the ground. Because I don't care as a human, my health is
Mhm.
here. My health
Mhm.
is 2 meters above the ground. Where I
Mhm.
do business is 2 meters above the ground. Where I
Mhm.
walk or run is 2 meters above the ground. That's
Mhm.
the temperature at 10-meter square granularity that I want to map. And to
Hmm.
make this effective, AI can help us update and read temperature almost every second. This
Wow.
changes everything. Now,
Mhm.
cities can make real decisions based on, and this is very important, precise location based heat data.
Mhm. That's incredible, Jay. Well, one, thank you so much for sharing your personal story. I meet entrepreneurs all the time, and so often the most successful entrepreneurs, the best businesses come from people, everyday people that have had some kind of life experience, experienced some kind of friction, experienced some kind of issue, and said, I'm going to solve this problem for myself and for other people like me. And so, thank you so much for taking the initiative and taking the step to solve this problem after experiencing that heat induced asthma or worse symptoms with your asthma from the very hot place that you grew up in. And what an incredible innovation. Sometimes things are simple and it makes complete sense that 2 meters above the ground is where humans live. And so we should have data, heat data in this case, that is 2 meters above the ground that focuses on that area where we live, whereas the satellite imagery, etc., is collecting aggregate data that maybe isn't as relevant to the day-to-day experience that you and I are having in whatever city that we might be in. I grew up in a small town in South Alabama, so in the southern United States. So I grew up with heat and humidity. I actually like it. I love the summertime. But I have to tell you, I've been to some cities around the world and been there in the summer, and the heat was just oppressive. Like I couldn't walk more than a block or a block and a half in any direction without having to turn around and go back. And so I wanted to go to a museum or I wanted to go check out, some kind of landmark, but I couldn't do it because it was just so hot outside. And I know that especially in the summertime, we get these urban heat pockets. And so could you maybe dive in a little bit more? How much variation is there in terms of heat data in a city? And what can be done to target those heat pockets when you find them?
Yeah, so I want to start just to echo a lot of the stuff that you said. I want to start by using a very nice story or a practice or an exercise we used to do in school, which is
Hmm.
taking a frog, I don't know if you remember that, and putting it into boiling water.
Oh,
So
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so the frog would jump out of the pot immediately, and then you would take it into chilled water and
Hmm.
just heat it up little by little. What happens is that the frog keeps adapting its temperature to the water until it
Hmm.
dies inside. And what I feel is that we're doing the same in cities. I hope that we don't end up staying at the pot. Cities are
Yeah,
getting hot, we're building bigger malls. We just use our cars because streets are paved. We
yeah.
even run marathons, man, indoors. We do everything indoors. And
Hmm.
it feels like at the some level, we're going to get to the threshold and it will be too difficult for us to survive it. I hope that we don't get to that level, but it seems like it's so obvious. And the frog metaphor just reminds me of that. I
Yeah.
think weather um, for a very long time has been considered or understood in many different ways that we're not. FortyGuard is not a weather company.
Hmm.
We're building commercial grade temperature intelligence that enables governments, enterprises, and even industries to make data driven decisions about heat resilience. So
Hmm.
instead of relying on slow and generalized climatic reports that are out there, and a lot of folks they do them very well, we wanted to come in and provide real-time, high-precision temperature analytics with almost
Hmm.
a 2 meter resolution that
Mhm.
offers 115 times more accurate data than the traditional meteorological models that are out there. And
Mhm.
we believe that if we deliver this solution in this manner, our AI driven platform will allow cities to identify the high risk urban heat zones in real time. So
Mhm.
instead of assuming that an entire district is experiencing the same temperature,
Mhm.
so take Dubai for instance, where I was driving to come to this call, we can't just show heat the same across all streets because street to street temperature can vary up to 15 degrees Celsius
Oh,
within
wow.
the same city, but also within the same hour. And this
Wow.
comes from experience on the ground. We
Mhm.
validated this ourselves with sensors,
Mhm.
allowing us to not only understand those variations at real time, but also understand how to target or bring interventions.
Mhm.
And second, when it comes to um, AI can also allow cities to optimize cooling strategies
Mhm.
with urban planning. A lot of cities can now, because we can't just rely on HVAC systems and AC units, right? Because they
Yep.
consume a lot of energy. We need to look into passive cooling. And passive
Mhm.
cooling isn't AC. Passive cooling is everything but not AC. And passive cooling needs to be strategically implemented, whether
Mhm.
it's having a shade structure, understanding the right heat capacity for a selected materiality, where to build trees, which trees to build, which irrigation system to use. You want to be effective and you want to understand how to be most effective with data. Data tells us the truth. It doesn't only guide us to know
Mhm.
what's the truth, but it also tells us the truth, right? Because now you have a
Mhm.
baseline to understand everything and be able to intelligently distribute your resources instead of just doing them randomly.
Yep.
Now, also energy in cities is a very important issue because we all need energy. We can't live without it. But what about having energy also efficiently, right?
Mhm.
So our intelligence layer can help in especially utility companies and energy planners predict the cooling demand. So we
Mhm.
can prevent a lot of grid overloads, right? And it happened last summer, and we predict that it's going to happen a lot this summer. That there is a lot of grid overloads that happens, and then in one of the most or um, in even oil countries, they
Mhm.
they suffer an overload on their grid and lose energy
Mhm.
um, during summer times because of the consumption.
Yep.
And I think also speaks to the example that I used about myself earlier. We need the data to enhance the public safety and
Yeah.
implement health interventions, right?
Mhm.
Governments today, they have to deploy a heat action strategy. They need to have an emergency plan. They need to understand real-time temperature fluctuations so they can go ahead preventively to protect vulnerable populations from heat-related illnesses. It
Mhm.
it 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 makes me feel disgusted sometimes that we learn in places like Europe, you have 60,000 plus people die from heat waves during summertime.
Oh,
Why
wow.
would we lose a lot of those people to heat? And
Mhm.
it also surprises me, since we're talking about the US as well. The UN has a global chief heat officer.
Mhm.
They call heat or urban heat the silent killer.
Wow.
Basically, it takes more lives than any other climatic event and
Mhm.
all other climatic events combined. So, who is visualizing urban heat? Who is solving for urban heat? It is
Well, you
very
are.
we are today, but we who was doing it, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
no one was doing it, yeah.
no one was doing it, right? Like, and you can look outside and or you can look into other softwares. You have a lot of software, you have a lot of intelligence, and this is where meteorological models have been focusing for a very long time, understanding flooding, hurricanes, different things, and being able to visualize them and model them and forecast them and so on and so forth, because people can visualize them. Our brains can register if it's raining so much and there is a lot of water on the ground, then we know it's a flood, right?
Mhm.
But our brains cannot register if we look out of the window, oh, the temperature outside is 100 degrees Fahrenheit. We can't.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
why we haven't built a visualization tool that allows us to do so? And it is
Mm-hmm.
surprising to me as I started this company and today that I'm talking to you that
Mm-hmm.
FortyGuard came into the space not only to bring a simple realization
Mm-hmm.
into now a product that we are bringing to the world in a very transformative way, but also brings a total new level of understanding to people about how temperature is actually behaving in our cities.
Yeah.
And one last thing here as well. Um, what I also like about FortyGuard, because of the understanding of temperature, is that we wouldn't just come in to replace how we conventionally used to look into reading temperature.
Mm-hmm.
We came into this to even transform a lot of industries like logistics. Now
Mm-hmm.
working on a temperature routing model that can give you your next walking distance for a cooler route instead of a shorter one,
I
or
could have
even
used that.
here you go, right? Um, or or delivering, especially in logistics, when you have a lot of time and temperature sensitive goods, like during COVID time, we had a lot of vaccines to be
Mm-hmm.
delivered in almost real time, and real estate, construction, energy, property selection.
Mm-hmm.
Like I want to live somewhere that has a good microclimate condition. So
Mm-hmm.
I want to list properties based on microclimate conditions. All of those commercial use applications were never introduced to the world. So
Mm-hmm.
having the data, the right data, and
Mm-hmm.
understand variation and how to read temperature will allow us to extract and uncover a lot of great stuff.
Yeah. Well, again, this makes complete sense when you said we can look out of the window and see a flood, but we can't look out of the window and see a heat wave or see that it's incredibly high. Having a tool that visualizes heat data, again, at the 2 meter level, at the level that humans are experiencing the environment, experiencing the temperature, it makes complete sense. And hopefully it'll be able to save some lives. Hopefully that 60,000 number in Europe will go down. And hopefully the predictive analytics that you're able to provide to um, power companies and energy distributors. Hopefully, that'll help to smooth out some of those rough spots when it comes to the energy grid. Great stuff, Jay. Enjoyed learning a little bit more about FortyGuard, the reason why you started the company, and how it's making an impact. Now, let's talk a little bit more about the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and how you are impacting them. I know you mentioned the UN has a person that is over heat around the world. As we think about SDG 11, sustainable cities and communities, how are you impacting SDG 11? And do you think it can be reached by 2030?
At FortyGuard, we really believe in AI, um, but we don't believe that AI is going to single-handedly rescue the SDGs. It
Mm-hmm.
will bring a significant acceleration to the progress of solving a problem, which is obviously how we collect data,
Yep.
lack of real-time insights, or the inefficient resource allocation that we have today in the.
And I think that's so important, Jay, because I don't know if you know this, but about a third of the SDG targets actually can't be tracked because data isn't available.
Here you go.
Now, part of that is the member states have to release data, so that's part of it. But the biggest piece is the data is not available or it's not being collected. And so I think anything we can do to get more and better data, especially targeted data like this for heat in cities, it's only going to help. But please continue.
Yeah, no, I'm just gonna echo what you just said because a lot of solutions out there to solve for those SDGs, they require a significant amount of human interventions, data processing
Hmm.
time. There is a lot of bureaucracy as well when it comes
Yep.
to execution. I think obviously we have to use AI for good. Um, this
Hmm.
is what we've been doing for a very long time alongside NVIDIA to make sure that we can use
Hmm.
it for good, using GPUs for good, and we can. FortyGuard is a testament that this is
Hmm.
happening and this is the truth, and we can do it. But AI can eliminate a lot of those barriers when it comes to automating the intelligence and gathering and enabling all of this data to be faster, to enable us provide smarter decisions, and to be able to measure the impact and extract the right value and the insights. When it comes to, we started talking about SDG 11, sustainable cities and communities. I think AI can be a game changer. You're talking about how AI enables real-time urban intelligence. Like today, traditional urban planning completely relies on outdated surveys and static data sets. AI can provide live insights, allowing them to respond dynamically to a lot of the environmental changes that they have in cities. AI can enhance resource efficiency. Instead of deploying cooling solutions just randomly, AI can pinpoint where interventions will be most effective, and this can maximize impact with fewer resources. So even when it comes to the balance sheet, we can make a lot of money because the ROIs are going to be bigger. AI can improve resilience, especially when it comes to forecasting, because now we can analyze the current conditions and be able to very accurately and with precision predict future risks. And this will help our cities plan for extreme heat events, do something to prevent them, especially in vulnerable places, before those heat events happen, right? We can predict everything today. We can predict markets. We can predict politics. We can predict a lot of stuff. Why not we predict temperature? And obviously, the most important factor to me is that AI can democratize data access. We started FortyGuard, by the way, and especially with the data exercise that we have, with the sole purpose as well to democratize the use of temperature. And with our AI-driven APIs, and obviously the freemium dashboard that we have on FortyGuards, which is our temperature dashboard, government, enterprises, public professionals now can access temperature intelligence at scale. And they can use all of this data so they can bring heat resilience and have a sense of shared responsibility, because everyone has got the data. Everyone now becomes responsible. And I think that's why we've been spending a lot of time, and we feel that we're responsible but also committed to make sure that we use AI, I mentioned for good, but also in the right practice, so we can bring our temperature machine intelligence to the world in a very much um, uh, uh, scalable ways, but also with precision and at speed, because all of this is today important in order for us to bring a meaningful progress to a lot of the things that are happening in the world.
I think that's great, Jay. And not only so providing this data, making it open and available for people around the world to access, it won't only impact temperature and healthy cities, but I'm sure there are other things that people will figure out to do with this data that can probably have a positive impact as well. So thank you again for the work that you and your team are doing. As we bring the conversation to a close, how can people get in contact with you? How can they access the data or subscribe to FortyGuard? And how can they support the work that you're
So
doing?
it's all in one place, FortyGuard.com. The moment you access the website, you will be able to subscribe to our temperature dashboard. You'll be able to access everything for free. You will be able to map temperature anywhere, historically or even near real time. You will be able to use all the analytical tools that we have, whether it's for satellite segmentation, street view segmentation, or even extracting an entire report of maybe 50 pages, or you can have a summary of it, what we call the temperature heat intelligence report, or the locality that you live in. All of this today is available on our temperature dashboard, and it is available for free. So I suggest that you go and subscribe to it. If you want to reach out to me, j.sadiq, SADIQ, at FortyGuard.com. Everyone can reach out, and the team as well is available at info@FortyGuard.com. We're on LinkedIn. We're in every social media out there, and we're there for you. If you feel that we could do something together. We haven't done it all on our own. We've done it with others. So we'd like you to come on board, help us with our mission, and hopefully we can help you with yours.
Yeah, let's all join Team FortyGuard and continue this positive impact together. Thank you again, Jay, for joining us for this conversation at Impact with AI. And thanks to all of you in the audience for listening in for another conversation. If you're interested in seeing more of these sessions, visit impactwithai.media or subscribe to our playlist on YouTube. I'm Brandon Andrews, your host, and I'll see you next time.